Inspiration.com.
As anybody who watches my channel knows, I am a massive Genesis fan. They're my favorite band. I'm unapologetic about it. I love every era. I love the Peter Gabriel era. I love the Phil Collins era. I even love the Ray Wilson era. So you would think that when they announced that they would be going back on the road, that they'd be reuniting for the first time in 13 years, you would think that I'd be pumped. You'd think that I'd be the first one in line to buy tickets. You would think that when they announce that they are doing a documentary, a behind-the-scenes documentary, that I'd be thrilled. No, not really. I'm here today to talk about Genesis, The Last Domino. What I have here is a collection of Genesis documentaries. There's actually a few. There's quite a few. If you want, in my opinion, the best one objectively is Genesis: A History. But that came out in 1990, so it doesn't tell the whole story. If you want the whole story, you want Genesis: A Songbook. That came out in 2000, so it covers another 10 years and gets all the way through their last album. Doesn't talk about the reunion tour in 2007, and obviously doesn't talk about the latest reunion tour, but the latest reunion tour isn't worth talking about. I bought this documentary because I am a Genesis fan. I even bought their latest retread, the greatest hits, also called The Last Domino. I own all those songs. I did not need another CD, and yet I bought it. I will buy the live album if there is one. I will buy the concert DVD if there is one. But that's really because I'm a fan. It's not because what they are putting out now is any good. This really pains me to say it, but they should not be out on tour right now. And I think most Genesis fans would agree. Phil Collins is in poor health. He can't walk anymore. He has to sit through the entire concert. And what surprised me, because he went out on tour a few years ago for his solo stuff, and he had to sit through the whole concert. But it sounded okay. You know, not great, but it sounded okay. The years have not been kind in between because he can't really sing anymore. For the first time ever, Genesis has backing vocalists. They've never had it before. They've never needed it before. But he can't, his voice just isn't there. He can't get out that same strength that he had just 13 years ago, but not even what he had 5 years ago. This is the documentary. It came out on PBS, but everybody instantly had it on YouTube. And I watched it on YouTube. Great guy, Bill Film, who has actually collaborated with me on a couple of Genesis projects. He put it out on his channel, and I watched it. And I was really shocked watching this documentary. Uh, First of all, the documentary itself, there's very little enthusiasm for it on the part of everybody involved. I think it was made primarily because the concert was supposed to happen in 2020, and COVID made that impossible. So there was a possibility that they weren't going to do anything. And seeing the behind the scenes stuff, I get why they were like, and again, I hate to say this, but maybe Phil Collins wouldn't be able to do it, or maybe he wouldn't even be here to do it. You look at this guy now. First of all, you look at this guy in his heyday, 80s and 90s, right? 70s, 80s, and 90s. You see him in the 70s. He is a powerhouse drummer. People can make fun of his music all they want to. That man is one of the greatest drummers to ever live. He's amazing. He made Genesis a band by joining it. Their two first albums they're okay, but you get to the third album where he joins and Steve Hackett joins, and they're a band. They've got a voice all of a sudden. They're a cohesive unit, and it's there from the very first track of the very first album after he joined. In the 80s, the guy could jump around and run around on stage, and he was a great showman. And he was in the 90s. And even in the 2000s, early 2000s, all the way up to the Turn It On Again tour in 2007, which I got to attend, he was great. And there's just, the health problems have mounted, and this almost feels exploitive to me. I don't know why he's doing it. He does not look enthusiastic. He doesn't look like he wants to be there. And every interview that he's done since the tour began back in September, every interview it's been like, after this, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. You know, I'm retired after this. This is just me saying goodbye, and then I'm done. I'm sure he also, the fact that his son Nick, much like with the last solo tour, is now the drummer for Genesis, which is great. Nick Collins is a great drummer, but Chester Thompson was always their touring drummer. Now, he's retired now, so you wouldn't expect him back. But it's also come out that there's some bad blood between him and Phil Collins. It just casts more kind of ugliness on the whole thing. Part of the documentary touches on the fact that earlier this year there was a big scandal about the fact that Phil Collins' ex-wife, who he had gotten back with, secretly married another man and moved him into the mansion that she was living with Phil Collins in, and then refused to leave, and had to be court ordered to get out. And it was a whole long drawn out thing over the course of months. And it's just, this whole thing, there's a ugliness about this whole reunion tour. There's a sadness about it. There's a part in the documentary where Mike Rutherford says, Phil should be able to drum. He should be drumming. You know, I've told him, you know, if you spent half an hour a day practicing, you could drum again. The dude can't walk. The dude's head, he's like this for a lot of the concert. Like, he can barely get his head up. And he's going to play drums on the really heavy powerhouse songs like Domino or Cinema Show or Firth the Fifth. He's going to play drums on that? Again, this feels exploitive. This feels like Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks wanted to go back out on tour, and maybe they guilted Phil Collins into doing it. And it also feels exploitative in that, you know, in his autobiography, he talks about their manager, Tony Smith, who he has nothing but love for. But Tony Smith sees dollar signs in his eyes every time he gets them together. and he insists on stadium shows. This is not a band that should be doing stadium shows anymore. And Phil Collins has said he doesn't like doing stadium shows. Why they didn't just book a series of smaller venues, I don't know. I went and saw St. Vincent last month, and it was not in this big giant arena. It was in like this smaller venue, and it was great. Genesis could do that. So this documentary, I'm giving it 1 star. And it's weird to say that about a thing that I just bought and that is brand new on my shelf. And why would you have bought it if you already knew you didn't like it? It is completely out of brand loyalty. That's all it is. It's the fact that Genesis, they're done. You know, I mean, there's no way there's more Genesis after this. There's no way. You know, the tour is called The Last Domino, ? That question mark. It's a miracle if they can finish this tour. You know, somebody in the band got COVID. They had to cancel a bunch of shows in the UK. This just feels like they need to just, okay, you've sold tickets, perform the shows, and then gracefully bow out if that opportunity hasn't already passed them by.
Their worlds.
Sort of gave myself the challenge of, okay,